Welcome to Sportsnet's digital studios. My name is Amit, Mann, here to catch you up on all the latest and greatest from Canada basketball at Paris 2024. I'll be here throughout the games to let you know what is happening with Canada, the men's team, the women's team, and I'll be doing it throughout the games. So Canada didn't do very well against France in their first game of Paris 2024. The women's team, they were down very, very quickly in this one. The first half did not go as planned. Let's look at the numbers here. Game story, they lose 75-54. The second quarter was very, very bad for this team. Outside of that, the comparables were actually kind of there throughout the other three quarters. Turnovers were a huge problem, and then I'll get to some of the shot-making deficiencies, which I did mention in the preview, and that kind of showed its ugly head in this one. Gabby Williams on France, very, very good. But let's start with that second quarter, and look at the first quarter. Didn't actually go that bad for Canada. Shea Colley had a couple of really nice drives in that one. Right off the bat, Natalie Chanwa finds her off a middle pin. She's at the basket real quick for a layup, and she was actually one of the only people to really be aggressive in that first quarter. Her rim penetration was good, and it seemed like they wanted to counter what France was offering on that side of the defensive end with, hey, let's get downhill, let's get going to the rim, because that's how you're going to beat France. But aside from that, she had also 8 turnovers, and that was a huge problem for Canada, especially in the second quarter. It's kind of hard to say anything else other than they got blitz. They went 8 minutes in that second quarter without a point. That right there, a huge problem. Then you compound that with 13 turnovers, 10 in the second quarter, 13 overall in that first half. And a lot of these things, it was a lot of France pressure. Don't get me wrong, they played very, very well. And it started with their point guard, number 47, Bernice. She really put a lot of pressure on whether it was Shea Colley, whether it was Silas Swartz, whoever had the ball in their hands as a point of attack defender. She was a huge problem for them. And her hands were in traffic lanes. Her hands were getting on deflections. She was just in the jersey of anyone that she was encountering. Then aside from that, France, their game plan was pretty clear. It seemed like they wanted to put the pressure on the ball handlers, and they really pressed up on Canada's ball handlers, anyone who was on the perimeter. And then, as I mentioned before in the preview, if you did see it, that they want to get the ball to their bigs, and from there they can get into some of their off-ball move and some of those off-ball actions. But you got to get there first. And they could not simply do that with comfort. And if they did get there, look, now the shot clock is winding down, and now you got to heave up a three-point shot. And aside from putting a heave up, Canada is not all that great at shooting from three. And again, that was a problem for this team on that side of things. But the passing lanes were very much closed off. France, they had a lot of giddy up in this game, and no doubt, they're in front of their home crowd. Obviously, they're going to have a lot of giddy up in this first game. The crowd was actually really good in this one. You could tell that Canada, they kind of had a little bit of stage fright. I mean, yeah, sure, the first quarter went well, but it felt like when they got to their second unit, things went a little and they could not get the momentum back on their side of things. It was a bit eye-opening how things went for Canada. No question about it. The turnovers were a huge problem. That led to 16 points in the first half for France. And then from there, they're also making their shots. And even from their half-court offense side of things, and I'm talking about France, one of their best player, Marine Johannes, if you saw the preview, I highlighted her as a reason for Canada to be really concerned because of her off-ball shooting and how she's able to get into small windows and really hit shots. She shot 1 of 9 from 3, so they kind of kept her at bay. But another thing that really came up for Canada, and this is kind of where the foot speed became a bit of an issue, is that, yes, you get some players going through off-ball screens, and then you're able to meet them at the top of the floor. But then once those re-screens happen from French bigs, from there, now Canada is all out of sorts. There's a wide gap where France is going to be able to get downhill or make a pocket pass. And Gabby Williams, I mentioned her before, she was very good in this game. I mean, you talk about a player who just had the game on a string. She had 12 points, 8 assists, 5 steals. And from there, I mean, it's like a whole bunch of things. Back and forth for Canada. Her shiftiness, her ability to navigate tight windows. when, she sees like the big coming at her, she's able to make that pocket pass. And a couple of times she had a few Canadian defenders on skates. They were doing the twist, essentially going back and forth. They could not get themselves in front of her. She's that good. And then if the pass was made, hey, now we're talking about number 22, Badian. Now she was making a lot of her mid-range shots in this one, and it just kept on compounding from there. And obviously Canada, they did not shoot well, which was a problem. The turnovers happened, and the France side, half-court offense aside from it, they were good, not great, but they were able to get the baskets when they needed them. And collectively, defensively for Canada, they just could not handle the penetration from the French side. This is where the slow-footed kind of stuff really did come up for them. But, on the other side of the ball, if we're looking at just some of the things that I'd mentioned in the preview about Canada, their offensive toughness, I had some concerns about that, and it kind of reared its ugly head, as I said before, in this one with essentially them not being able to navigate what was happening on the French side defensively. There was a lot of pressure, and once that happens, you've got to be able to get the ball to your bigs. Maybe you have your big bringing down the ball down the floor. Victor Lepena, I'm not sure if he really handled the pressure from the French side as well as he probably should have. And from there, I really think Sammy Hill should have played in the first half. She did not play. He went with Nira Fields, and he also went with a sort of combination of a few different players. But when she was in the game, she was also a +5, mind you. It kind of felt like a bit of a stabilizing force. And the best way to counter pressure is to get downhill and to get towards the rim. And Sammy, she's so fast, she's so agile. She was pretty good at that. And actually, she kind of calmed things down when she was able to get through some press breaks and get towards the basket. And also, her pressure she's able to apply on the defensive end. I'm not really sure why she didn't play. That was kind of puzzling for me. I mentioned before that the 1-2 combination of Silas Swords and Sammy Hill was pretty good in exhibition, and I wanted to see more of that. And for some reason, Victor went away from that. And I wonder if she did play a lot in that second half. And as I mentioned, she was a +5. I don't see that happening again for Canada. And with the way things are going for them now, they're in a really tough spot to get out of this group, because if you didn't hear, Nigeria, they beat Australia. Nigeria is a bit of an unknown going into this one. You don't see a lot of televised events with them. You know that they're always doing very well in Afrobasket, but you don't really know too much about them. But you saw their shot making, you saw their pressure and their speed, and it caused Australia a lot of issues. And so the group now is very wide open, but that may also mean that not great things for Canada, that they may be falling behind more than we even thought. In this matchup with the other teams in their group, France, Australia, Nigeria. It feels like all these teams may be a little bit better than Canada. You don't want to make too much from one game because it is just one game, but some of the speed issues, offensive toughness, as I mentioned, Canada was just always playing from behind. And they could not get ahead, and some of the big matchups I was hoping they'd be able to capitalize on. Kayla Alexander, she played good in that first quarter, but outside of that, they could not get the ball into their bigs. Why is that happening? Well, there's a lot of denied defense, obviously, from the French side, but also they did not really make their presence felt. Right, and especially in that second quarter, third quarter as well, and the turnovers just kept on coming and coming and coming. I gave Shea Colley, her credit for her performance at least from the points side of things, but she had 6 turnovers. That's a lot. And for Canada, if you're not going to be able to hit threes and you're turning the ball over, chances are you are not going to do very well in any particular game. So that's where they stand now, right? Canada is in a tough spot to get out of their group. They're going to have to beat Australia. They're going to have to beat Nigeria, probably, considering the point differential in this one was, 21 points, 19, whatever it was, 75, 21 points. Now their point differential is not going to be their friend, so they have to beat Nigeria and Australia to get out of their group. Can they do it? We're going to have to find out, essentially. A disappointing effort, disappointing game for the women's side, but now let's talk about the men's side, because they do have a game coming up against Australia. That is Tuesday morning at 7:30 a.m., bright and early. And from this one, A couple of things that I wanted to highlight was Jamal Murray. Does he look a little bit more comfortable? I had mentioned the non-Shea minutes. He has to be the catalyst for their offense and also just to keep them above ground during that time. And he didn't do all that great in the first game, but I'm hoping that second time around he gets a rhythm, he finds a groove, he's able to do that. And Australia, if you don't know, they got a lot of NBA players, no doubt about that, but a lot of the guys are role players. And sure, Aussie Patty Mills, Olympic Patty Mills is a problem. He's very good, but Canada should be able to keep up with that. And Josh Giddey, the guard play from Australia is good, but Canada is also very good too. And they have the defenders to be able to counter it. But defensively, on the offensive glass, they have to be able to contain Jacques Landale. He was very good in the first game against Spain. So they do those things, they should be in good shape. And also, as usual, there is no one on the Aussie side to contain and guard Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. So he should be just fine. He'll put his points up. And please, Dwight Powell, Lou Dort, Dylan Brooks, do not get in foul trouble. I want to see what this team looks like when they're fully intact for most of a game. And if you're missing 3 starters for the bulk of a majority of your second half, you're going to be in rough shape. So please, those guys, stay on the court, and I want to see what this Canada group is made of for a full 40 minutes. So looking at what's coming up, as I mentioned, we got Canada and Australia tomorrow morning, 7:30, and then tomorrow as well, the women's 3x3 team. They got 2 games, and they get going in the Olympics. And then for the women's team, as I mentioned, they got Australia coming up in a couple of days, 7:30 in the morning. That's on Thursday. Let's see what happens for the women's team and that side of things. But hopefully the 3x3 team, they're able to get themselves a good start to this tournament, and we'll proceed from there. So I hope you enjoyed this. My name is Amit Mann. We'll be back with you to update you on all the latest and greatest on Canada basketball. Have a good day. Have fun.